The following program is sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.
Welcome to Building Wisconsin, Terry. Great to have you on today's show, and I'm so excited about it because we are on a mission to learn more about digital infrastructure here in our state. And somebody watching the show might go, well, digital infrastructure, why the heck are you up at Coloma at their training center? Well, because now it's become ingrained into your training, hasn't it?
Well, it has. We have for many years. You know, Stu, I would love to sit here and talk to you about what a wonderful opportunity is to build these data centers in the state of Wisconsin. I'm not going to do that. We love the jobs, of course we do, but I want the viewers to know that we've been using this technology for over 20 years. We embraced it early. We invested a lot of money in it, thinking this is the future, when a lot of other training centers around the country did not. And it has paid off in aces and spades. I can tell you right now, training our members with this technology has gained more work just by using these computer screens in our pieces of equipment. Now, every piece of equipment that we've got now has computer screens. Okay, they all have onboard computers. This tells you what line and grade and slope your machine is performing in. And it's all AI technology. And we have taught this for over 20 years now.
So looking at these screens, they look like a video game. How are the students trained on these in the classrooms?
Well, we start them out on simulators too. We have a simulator room here, and that's AI technology as well. I mean, very advanced. We can have a student on a simulator in one corner of the room and another student in the other corner of the room on a different simulator. AI will make them, through virtual reality, feel that they are on the same job site, working and coordinating together.
Well, you know, you hear the term AI, a lot of people right away have negative connotation. Oh my gosh, they're going to take all the jobs away and anything. You're embracing it, and it's probably leading to more jobs.
It absolutely is, because I remember when the auto workers were negotiating a contract and they were introduced to the robotics on the assembly line.
Sure.
They refused to recognize robotics. So they got the contract, but the automakers went ahead and built factories with robotics in it without the workers. So the workers had to catch up with the technology, which they did, and I'm glad they did.
Sure.
But we're not going to play catch up with anybody. We are going to work with this technology. And I just wanted the viewers to know, when I stand up for data centers, this is what I stand up for. This is something that we've embraced a long time ago. It's in our industry, it's in many construction trades, it's in a lot of industries, but this preserves jobs. 5 years ago, we sat down with the dirt movers to negotiate a contract about autonomous equipment, which is AI-driven heavy equipment. Now, we can let that technology come into our industry. Yep. And sit on the sidelines and ask if we can play, or we can negotiate a contract that makes our members part of that. Sure. And we came up with a contract about a year and a half ago that puts our members on the job site overseeing the operation of autonomous equipment. This technology advances every year. Every piece of heavy equipment made today has that computer on board.
Wow, well, I just love that you can show us real-world applications for AI, because we hear so much negative about AI and everybody's scared of it, but heck, it's helping build our communities. It's really ingrained in our culture, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah, well, what I really like is I'm seeing a different side to the data center argument out there. This is one where it's being embraced, not just for the work your members are getting, but for what they're providing, because in order to have this type of technology, you need data centers because they're really, as I understand it, the backbone to this digital infrastructure that really we've all become dependent on.
Frankly, Stu, I'm surprised at some of the uprising. I'm surprised how afraid some people are. I remember when I was afraid of a microwave when they first came out. It was convinced there was radiation coming around. It's sound waves, right?
Yep.
So I'm quite frankly surprised, and I'm glad you came up here to check about how we apply artificial intelligence to our industry because we've been doing it for a long time.
Well, Terry, I wish we had more time to look at more of the incredible equipment that the students here get to learn on so that they can be sent out into the real world and be ready to go from day one. We'll do that in another episode. Right now, I'm heading across the state to learn more about our digital infrastructure.
That's great. We'll see you up here again, Stu.
Here in Wisconsin, we help our neighbors and rely on technology that keeps our community strong. And delivering it all are data centers. They keep our hospitals connected, our classrooms running, and our small businesses growing. Data centers create jobs, boost local suppliers, and invest in infrastructure that stays right here at home. From the farms to the cities, data centers help us live smarter, work safer, and stay connected every day. Data centers, delivering what matters.
Oh, what a beautiful lecture hall here. And thanks for coming on Building Wisconsin, Becky. Great to have you on today's show. And as a professor of history here at Ripon College, we wanted to catch up with you to learn more about the evolution of digital technology and how it's changing our approach to teaching students at colleges across our state. But before we get into that, tell us more about Ripon College.
Well, thanks for being here, Stu. It's great to talk to you. Ripon's about 175 years old. We were actually founded in 1851, just a few short years after Wisconsin became a state. We've got about 700 students here on campus, which is really great. Professors love to get to know students. It really makes those good relationships possible. We've got students who enter a variety of different fields after different majors here at Ripon. Everything from exercise science and business. We have a new engineering program as well, and also all kinds of health-related professions, as well as the old-fashioned kinds of subjects like history.
So as a history professor here, I'm sure that you've seen a lot, you've taught a lot, and you've witnessed a lot of change over the years. And we want to focus on the last 15 years or so when smartphones came into vogue. And how has digital technology like this changed your approach to teaching?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes in my time here at Ripon. I've been here for more than 20 years. Obviously, students all have smartphones right now. A lot of them have laptops. So the whole internet is at everybody's fingertips. And there's so many opportunities there for students to learn new things, for professors to teach new things. So it's been really exciting kind of working through that with students. AI, I would say, is a part of that. Again, bringing the internet and all of the digital information out there to students right where they are. I would say one of the things that I've seen and really tried to work on in my time as the changing technology has continued to progress is how do I help students manage and think about all of this information? We all have access to so much information now that it's not a question of can I find something, it's what do I do with all of this masses of data that I've found. Students, we think, should really be exposed to AI. They're going to be living with it in their everyday lives, in their work. So they should know how it works. They should know what does it do well? What do I maybe have to think about when I'm evaluating what it put out? How can it be useful to me in my research? I would say that's one thing that I've learned and have been helping my students practice in my history classes. How do we write a prompt that gets a response from AI about a historical subject? And we've found that that's really useful for sort of starting research. What do I need to know about this topic so that I can go and learn more? Also in fields like history, we find that it's useful for summarizing, again, a large amount of data. What can I do with this data where it would have taken me, weeks to sort of read through it all? I think that those kinds of advances are really going to help research in all different kinds of fields. We're seeing faculty sort of recognize that all across campus. And I think our students are going to need to know that too. One thing that we really want is for them to be flexible, to have the sort of critical thinking skills to use AI, because it's changing all the time. AI tools can do things now that they couldn't do 3 months ago. So how do we prepare our students so that they can adapt to what's coming? So that's what we really try to do here at Ripon College, and I'm sure people all over Wisconsin in different colleges and universities are doing the same.
Sure. Well, Becky, it's been great having you on the show. I really wish we had more time to talk about this. I find it just fascinating. And I really appreciate you sharing some real world examples of how AI and this digital technology is evolving and really changing the approach to how we teach students at colleges across our state.
Absolutely. It's something that's here for the rest of our lives, and we're going to need to help students prepare to use it.
Welcome to Building Wisconsin, Rich, and thanks for coming on the show. And so far today, we've been traveling around our state, learning about our digital infrastructure. And we wanted to catch up with you to see what impact these new data centers might have on local utility bills. But before we do that, tell us where we're at on this beautiful day.
Well, good morning, Stu, and thanks for coming out to our Paris solar and battery storage facility here in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. This is a 200 megawatt solar and 100 megawatt battery energy storage facility that's here serving our customers each and every day.
Well, this is a perfect backdrop because as I understand it, the ultimate goal is to have these new data centers get their power from renewables like this.
Well, that's exactly right, Stu. The data centers do want to be powered primarily by renewable energy. They also need power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so to backstop not only their usage, but make sure we have enough power for all of our customers each and every day and every hour of every day, we're also building more renewable facilities and state-of-the-art natural gas facilities that can be dispatched at a moment's notice and provide energy when our customers need it.
Sounds like you're working closely with the data centers on this plan.
Yes, we've been working with the data centers since they first announced plans to come to the state of Wisconsin so that we could not only design a generation fleet to serve them, but also to build a customer protection plan which provides extreme customer protections to all of our other customers so that the cost to serve the data centers and provide them with energy does not shift any cost to our other customers.
Oh, well, that's interesting to hear. So you're saying that existing residents and businesses aren't going to have to worry about their electric bills going up if there's a new data center built nearby?
Oh, that's exactly right, Stu. The data centers will not increase our customers' bills. So we put together a customer protection plan, which comprises 2 tariffs that are pending before the Public Service Commission right now. It'll do just that. It will protect our other customers in a very transparent and deliberate way to ensure that those costs are not shifted between the data centers to our other customers.
Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, that really goes against the norm as far as the infrastructure investment. I mean, normally when a business comes in, the utility takes care of the infrastructure cost, right?
Well, generally speaking, that's right. So we get a request for a new customer coming in to consume electricity. We'll build the infrastructure to serve them. Then those costs get folded into our entire portfolio of costs, and then they're spread over all of our customers. Here we're taking a completely novel and different approach because of the sheer size, scope, and scale of these data centers. Because the investment is so large, we've designed this customer protection plan to transparently show the cost to serve them are staying with them and not shifted to our other customers.
Boy, well, to me, it's great that you're looking out for your ratepayers and your existing customers, right?
Well, absolutely. It's important to us to make sure our customers are protected. I think it's important to note, too, that the data center customers find that to be an extremely important element as well. They want to make sure they're paying their fair share and they're not asking our other customers to shoulder any of those costs.
Well, Rich, I wish we had more time, but I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that news with us.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you, Stu. Thanks again.
Here in Wisconsin, we help our neighbors and rely on technology that keeps our community strong. And delivering it all are data centers. They keep our hospitals connected, our classrooms running, and our small businesses growing. Data centers create jobs, boost local suppliers, and invest in infrastructure that stays right here at home. From the farms to the cities, data centers help us live smarter, work safer, and stay connected every day. Data centers, delivering what matters.
Welcome to Building Wisconsin, Mayor. Great to be here in Port Washington. And on today's show, we've been on a mission to learn more about digital infrastructure here in Wisconsin. And we thought this would be a perfect location to visit because you have a new data center being built close by.
Welcome to the greatest small city on the Great Lakes. We're standing here in downtown Port Washington where, I was born and raised, and this is just a beautiful part of our state that I think anyone who's ever stopped here knows that. You're looking at the largest collection of pre-Civil War buildings in the state of Wisconsin.
No kidding.
And just a city very rich in a strong history of everything from manufacturing to fishing to tourism, and it's just an awesome place.
Well, as beautiful as your downtown is, this is what's near and dear to my heart. I mean, this brings back great childhood memories. I remember being maybe 10 or 12 years old, making the 2.5-hour trek across Wisconsin to fish salmon out of this harbor.
Yeah.
And that was my first introduction to Lake Michigan. And wow, what a valuable natural resource. And I gotta believe it's incredibly important to your community, but whether we're talking about Lake Michigan or any of our other natural resources around our state, I feel it's so important that we protect those. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And there's so many misconceptions about this project and other projects, but our project in particular, we were very, very aggressive on the front end to ensure that we could protect the resources of Port Washington. I mean, you're looking at an inner harbor area here that is incredibly unique. And one of the pieces that we wanted to do is just preserve what we all grew up with. So when I was a kid, just going back, when we would swim on our beaches, garbage would float up on our beach. You could go each day and pick stuff up and find old plates and bottles and all kinds of stuff like that. We haven't seen that in decades. And when the data center approached us, one of the things that we were all hyper conscious of was, how much water are you going to use? What's the impact on our infrastructure? What will that do? Only to find out that we were working with a company that uses what's called a closed loop system, which is like a radiator in your car. Once it's charged, it's just the same water moving around all day long throughout it, going up on the roof, cooling at the radiators up there and bringing it down, which is what makes Wisconsin so attractive, and Port Washington in particular, being this close to the lake. Our weather is, well, there's a saying, Stu, cooler by the lake for a reason. So we were very attractive for that purpose. Their daily use out there with 1,000 employees once it's up and running will be around 20,000 gallons of water a day, which is less than our school district uses in a day. So that is something we have the capacity for. And once we learned that, and there'd be limited impact, as well as one other thing, clean air. A data center does not discharge like manufacturing. There was no need for clean air credits. There was no need for any significant permitting as a result of what would be discharged from that building, because it's a digital warehouse in a new little digital city in Port Washington. And as a result, that was very attractive to us because our other options were slim, and there was only really options for small, heavy manufacturing out there, which would be very, very disruptive and not something that we were interested in. So this, as far as environmentally, and as an environmentalist, someone who grew up here and has been very active in conservation movements in our region, that made us as a council feel really good that we could support it infrastructurally and it was not going to impact our environment.
Wow, Mayor, this is an incredibly impressive site. I mean, it's huge. This is just one little area of it. Now, how long ago did construction of this new data center start, and how long do you expect it to go on for?
Yeah, so after all the DNR permitting was all completed and everything, this started in December.
You mean just a couple months ago?
Just a few months ago, yeah.
Wow, they're really making headway.
They are, and what's really amazing to me is just all this action you see behind us are just men and women from Wisconsin who are employed, working in winter and doing great things for us. And this is just the groundwork, and they've already begun further south of here, the pad work, and then the steel work begins next month.
How large of site is this?
So just to our south, it's just under 700 total acres, and the entire area that is for our second digital city out here is about 1,200 acres total for this industrial I-3 area.
Now, when we talk about proximity to downtown Port Washington, we got to be a few miles out of town.
Yeah, we're miles away from downtown Port Washington. And that's why we were okay with this project, because it doesn't impact the traditional parts of Port Washington. It built onto Port Washington. It increased our city's footprint, reduces taxes in time here for every resident, and it differentiates everything that we have. We don't have a major employer. So when this is up and running, there'll be 4 data centers out there that will employ nearly 1,000 people. And right now, if you live and grow up in Port Washington and you want to work in Port Washington, those options are limited. And now they will be unlimited.
Well, you mentioned a couple of your main concerns down at the waterfront. What other major concerns were addressed here? I mean, what is the end result going to look like?
Oh, headwaters of flooding, bird migration, water retention, forestry, sound, light. We were listening very carefully as people from the community and the town, our neighbors, were coming in and saying, like, we heard these things are loud, and we heard they're very bright, and we heard. And construction is a different phase of this. Once it's up and operating, you will see that we took into consideration so many things. This land traditionally was ag land, which was drain tiled, which would lead, after heavy rains, to flooding our city. Well, now there's 100+ acres of wetlands that will be restored and are at those headwaters. The retention ponds here will be between 60 and 80 acres of retention ponds.
Wow.
You add that up, that's a small lake up north.
Yeah.
So that water will stay here. We were very concerned because of environmental worries. This is an area of bird migration where this is as far south as certain species come, and it's as far north as certain species come. We didn't want that to be impacted. So I put the American Bird Conservatory groups in touch with Vantage, and they began to plan on what the ponds would look like, what type of forestry there would be, and just strong consideration into that. And at the groundbreaking, I was very clear representing our city that, you know, now that they found us, they have to leave us better than they found us.
Wow.
And remember that they are now the stewards of our history, and we will hold them to account.
And I know that there's some concern about driving by, you're going to be looking at, you know, these massive buildings. But you mentioned to me they're going to actually build a berm all the way around here, and it's going to be ecologically friendly?
Yeah, so one of the things we learned was in this data center buildup across the country, local communities have much more authority and autonomy than they recognize. And we said, we don't want to see you from the interstate. We want forestry that's strong, and we want that. So there will be an 8-foot berm, fencing, and forestry around the entire property, which is a significant cost to them, but it's what we needed. When you see the 30-year vision of how dense the forestry is on the berming and around the berming,
Yep.
You won't be able to see it. You will drive down the road thinking there's a forest over there.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned, you know, there's thousands of workers here. They're going to be here for a long time in the construction phase. How does all of that spill over and benefit Port Washington?
It is incredible. I mean, we're already feeling it. Our restaurants are opening earlier, staying open later. Downtown businesses are thriving as a result of all these men and women who are working here. And just as an example, in the first month, our little local hardware store, our True Value, they had thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars spent there in just a short period of time because they are the only hardware store within miles. And the companies who came here, when we met with them, we told them, you must support local. And the laborers here recognize that. I mean, they're running into town, they're going down to our butcher shop, buying a couple $100s worth of stuff to feed everybody, all the way to these awesome stories about our hardware store owner driving around the state of Wisconsin trying to get all of the extension cords to put on the coils for the diesel engines on the earth movers so that he could fill that order for them. And that's the beauty of where I live. We are a city that cares about each other and others, and now that we have our new friends here working on the far north side of town, we're all benefiting.
Well, Mayor, again, I really appreciate you coming on today's show. And we want to wrap it up here at your City Hall because I think this represents the reality of cities, towns, and villages across our state. And by that, I mean, in local government, there are services that need to be provided and there are bills that have to get paid, and that all adds up to property taxes. So let's take Port Washington, and historically speaking, how have those taxes been paid over the years?
So going back a long time ago into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Port Washington was very much a benefactor of our energy company. We had an electric company downtown, and at that time, the majority, if not all, of property taxes were covered by the payments made by that electric company. Over the years, obviously, that has changed. Manufacturers moved out. And today where we stand in 2026 is that 80% of all of our property taxes are paid by homeowners.
Wow, that's a big swing.
That is huge. And as a result, the city of Port Washington, like any city, if we don't grow, if we don't ripen, we rot. And as a result, what ends up happening is if we don't have that net new construction that is significant, every infrastructural change we make, whether that be building a new safety center or fixing our water plant, all that burden goes on to people who own a house. Port Washington does not have a blended tax base like we used to, where we had large industry in town, a lot of commercial. And now it's on to the taxpayer who owns a home.
Okay, so this new data center is coming to town. What is that going to mean to the property taxpayers around Port Washington?
Well, immediately in 2027, we will see an increase in valuation for the city. We negotiated a very unique developers agreement with Vantage Corporation. So they will immediately begin paying property taxes on $120 million worth of land value.
Wow.
And then they have a tax incremental district or a TIF agreement with us that they will pay off the infrastructure that they needed for the city to build out their project. And that is a pay-as-you-go TIF. So they are paying for all of the infrastructure improvements needed for the city to service them. And they are also paying property taxes on the land before construction.
And so as a homeowner who lives in Port Washington, are you talking about more stability then as we look to the future because of this?
Significant stability. When that TIF closes, such a large volume of valuation will come onto the city tax base that everyone will benefit, whether you own a commercial property or a residential property. And it will be significant. We are currently worth just under $2 billion as a city. This project is $15 billion infrastructural improvement, likely to be assessed, in billions of dollars. Even if it were only assessed at $4 billion, that will drop the residential personal liability on property taxes so significantly that we will be an incredibly attractive place. Our land values are already up, our property values are up in our city, and we are facing really good problems.
Well, once again, Mayor, thank you so much for coming on Building Wisconsin and sharing your story. And in closing, as we look out across Wisconsin, inevitably there are going to be other cities, towns, villages that get approached about construction of a new data center near them. So can we end today's show with you sharing some advice or recommendations for folks in those communities?
Yeah, number one, change is hard. I mean, what we've been through here, we recognize that if people don't know what's going on, there's a lot of resistance. But what we did do, I think, was we started communicating very early. Be upfront with the community. Make sure they know what the pre-developer agreements look like. I would actually go out to the developers end of this, and I want to give them some advice. Stop coming to communities under non-disclosure agreements. Start coming into communities building an awareness. This is who we are. This is what we do. I mean, if we were building, say, a motor plant for a car manufacturer, everybody would be like, oh, that's a brand we know what they do. There's a lot of skepticism about what goes on in technology. And there's a lack of trust. And when there's a lack of trust, there's a lot of questions. And when there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of bias. And my advice for local communities, especially in governance, is do your homework, make sure that who you're working with is upfront and out there right away, make sure you assess the risks, and make sure you're calling around. We went and visited the data centers in Virginia. We went to Mount Pleasant where they had gone through this. We learned and learned. We took everybody's collective wisdom and we built it into our own. And I think every community can build off of that and just do better every single time.
Well, again, thanks for coming on Building Wisconsin. I sure hope to see you again in the future. Who knows, maybe someday when I'm down fishing out of your port.
Yeah, there you go. Hope to see you then.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.